All right, we have definitively determined that bigger is not always better.
Yeah. I'm sure you guys, if you guys watched our install video for the splitter, we were throwing out numbers like 15 inches, 17 inches. We settled on 12 inches, but
We thought we were being conservative.
yeah. But I've been trying to tell my wife my whole marriage that 2 inches make the world of difference.
Poor girl.
So, yeah, so it turns out that kind friends on the internet informed us that SCCA rules require rear splitters to extend no more than 10 inches from the car in any which or way.
Who would have thought to look up the rules in a sanctioned body of a race event before you modify your car to compete in said event?
I did Google, but not well enough, clearly. So, yeah, the theme of this video today is that, yeah, bigger is not always better. We're gonna fix this. We've ordered shorter rods. These are 8-inch rods. We have 6-inch rods. We're gonna cut 2 inches off of this somewhere, yet probably up here. We are also moving to smaller or weaker rear pads. If you guys watched our autocross video for event 1, you saw that we were struggling the entire event with brake issues.
Yeah, the thing that happened there is we went to is it a 13-inch rotor?
Yeah.
We went to a 13-inch rotor in the rear and a real aggressive compound on the pad at the same time. And so we basically just increased the lever arm and the clamping force. Oh, and we replaced the worn out seized calipers with brand new calipers. And so we moved the lever arm, or made a longer lever arm, and then gave it a greater ability to hold onto the wheel. And we were surprised that it didn't work how we wanted it to.
Yeah.
So we're gonna not go back necessarily, but we are, like he said, gonna go to a softer compound, or less aggressive compound, to hopefully lessen the amount of bite in the rear so that the fronts can do the majority of the braking, and then the back is just kind of holding, the rear brakes are just holding the back in check. At our last event, as soon as we went to smash the brakes, the rear end immediately snapped in front, or snapped around, because the rear brakes were locking up. We, beyond some of our other issues with the car that day, had lost all confidence in our braking ability, so we just had a real bad showing at the first event, and we plan to undo all of that and come out strong for a second event.
Yeah. And the last thing we're going to do today, along with the theme, is that we're going to go to smaller springs in the rear. So back on the video we did with our coilover install, we installed what size of springs in the rear that day?
They're 8-inch long springs, 225 diameter, 300 pounds per inch.
Yeah, so when we got the car back onto the ground, we just didn't really like the way it sat. It was really high in the rear.
Still too high, yeah.
Yeah, and especially after installing expensive coilovers, we were really wanting to nail our ride height and make the car look good. And the front is perfect in my eyes, I think you agree, but the rear still sits a little high. So hopefully these smaller springs will fix that and maybe even help some of our turn in on the track.
Yeah, so we, at Nationals, we pulled the rear sway bar out of the car because we had just had a terrible time with the rear end grip. So we're currently at no sway bar, but we want to go back to sway bar, and we're going to accomplish that by going to the 250 pounds per square, or pounds per inch spring. So it's from a 300 to a 250, and then we're going to throw a V6 sway bar, which is a pretty small diameter, but still a solid sway bar back there. And we're hoping that that's the right combination for us, but we're going to do some testing, and it might be that we pull the rear sway bar back out.
Yeah, so I didn't think about that, but the sway bar also aligns with this theme that sometimes putting beefier stuff in the car just doesn't work out. So I mean, we're going from a GT sway bar to a V6 along with softer springs and everything else. So hopefully that helps resolve some of the issues we saw in event 1, and we'll come out stronger than ever for event 2. So we've got an Evo school. I'm sure some of you guys watching have heard of those or attended those. We've got one this upcoming weekend, which hopefully, if we can get the car put back together in time, will be a great way for us to at least test out the car, maybe make some fine tuning of the suspension. So yeah, but we've got about a month until the second event, so we've got some time, but you know, we're obviously eager to get the car back up in tip-top shape. We'll just get started and see you along the way.
Okay, we're gonna have to do a couple things to this. The bottom line, so this is the bottom, actually hung down and sort of interfered with this portion, the two brackets that mount to the car. So we're gonna actually raise the bottom line as well as cut the top down. And for the top, we're just gonna find where the holes are and then just make that the new the new leading edge or top edge of the spoiler extension. They're underneath all this tape somewhere. We retaped the entire thing because every time you touch this thing, it scratches. So we're trying to prevent it as much as we can. So we're gonna get to work on this, and hopefully we don't screw it up in the process because we don't have any more. Okay, we got it back on the car. It is now shorter. It is now legal. Wait, let me double check. Yeah. Unfortunately, it is nearly 3/4 of an inch shorter than maximum allowable. But we had to do that so that we could get rid of the old, the support rods. That's what we call them. Yeah. So that dictated how tall max length we could have on this now. So, I mean, we think it still looks good.
Yeah.
It's definitely shorter, but it's legal for sure now. So we just got to get these new rods. We got 6-inch support rods now, so we just got to get those re-drilled and installed, and then we'll be done, and we can move on to other stuff. We're swapping the rear pads on the back. We did our first event of the year, and I think we already mentioned this. As soon as we hit the brakes, the rears would lock up. We determined that was due to having a much larger rotor and an aggressive pad than what we originally had. So to compensate for that, we are now going back to a less aggressive pad. We're gonna leave everything else the way it is on the car, but here you can see the difference. This is our Hawk HP Plus pad versus a, how much was this? $30 Brake Best O'Reilly pad. This one's obviously made for street use and, you know, comfort and quietness, and this one is about stopping power. You can see the obvious difference is the size of the pad area where it's contacting the rotor. The construction is different as well. I don't actually know what these are made of. It's not. It doesn't say it on the box, so we don't know. But we're hoping that this is a good solution for us. So we're gonna throw these in the car now. Now we're gonna go ahead and swap to a shorter spring in the rear. We took the spring perch, or the adjustable spring cup, off of the spring we originally had in the car, and we're going to actually set a 1/2 inch gap between the two collars, and then put it on the new spring and throw it in the car. We want the rear to not sit lower than the front. Obviously that would look a little goofy and cause some problems on weight balance. But so what we're gonna do is basically go from 8-inch spring to 7-inch spring, and then have a 1/2 inch gap on the height adjust cup. So we'll essentially be getting a 1/2 inch lower ride height in the rear. And we hope that that's kind of a good spot for between the front and rear. But we'll put it down on the ground, and then it's real easy to adjust the height if we don't like it. So that's what we're going to do now. The new rear springs are in. Like I said, we adjusted the spring perch, so there's a 1/2 inch gap now. So we should be 1/2 inch lower when it's all said and done. We're going to check that and make sure we like it. And then we've also gone ahead and this was a V6 sway bar from Jeremy Scotton. Is that who we got this one?
Casey Stump.
Oh, Casey Stump, off of his track car that he did for a little bit. He had an S197 V6 track car. I think he must have taken this off at some point, but it was god-awful condition. Really, really rusted, in bad shape. Todd spent about an hour, probably, with a flat disc on a grinder, and he cleaned it all up, and then we took some texture black, same stuff we used on the roll cage brackets, sprayed it. Looks great, looks like a brand new bar. Put all back in. It's in there now. So we've got, in addition to the springs being slightly shorter, they're now 250 pounds per inch instead of 300, which is what we had before. So we went a little softer spring rate, adding the V6 sway bar back in. I don't know. Hopefully that works.
No one knows.
No one knows. It's impossible to say. I'm sure you guys will let us know at the next event. Yeah, so I think we're done now as far as being prepared for the next event. We have a couple things left on our checklist, but the car can go to the next event as it is, which is actually not an event. It's a Evo school in Salina, Kansas. But all right, we got all the parts in. We put the car back together, got the wheels and tires in the correct corners. That's always a good thing. Thanks for watching along. Obviously you saw us do our less aggressive pads, shorter springs, put a rear sway bar on, fix the rear spoiler. Those were all relatively simple projects for us, but feels good to, you know, knock things off the list and get the car back on the road and ready to go. Now we're gonna test it out because you got to make sure it works. And so we came to our private track out here, and
Mexico. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Testing complete. We like the results. We're happy with the car again. More confident in the braking. Ready to go to Salina.
Yeah. So all in all, good project. The car. Hold on.
Oh, you can see Dan now.
Yeah. So we feel good about the car. Good enough to go to Salina this weekend. So all in all, success. So if you guys watch this video, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, follow along, and we'll see you in the next one.